Good afternoon, Asheville. This is What's Up Asheville at WRIS Radio 100.7 FM, a radio show discussing projects and initiatives from the city of Asheville. This is Ricardo Basurto, your host, communication and public engagement specialist with the city of Asheville, and today we are accompanied by one amazing colleague of mine, Lucy Crown. Hi Lucy, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Ricardo. Yeah, it's great to be here. My name is Lucy Crown. I'm an urban planner in the transportation department of the city of Asheville.
That's great. And doing a follow-up on that, so can you tell us what do you do at the city?
Yeah, so working in the transportation department, I predominantly work with greenways, but we are currently working on actually 3 plans, one for the Greenway Master Plan, one for ADA transition, and one for pedestrian plans. So when you combine their first letters, they're called the GAP plans. And so the 3 plans will be rolling out soon. We're in the final stages of public engagement right now and hope to go to council in May. These 3 plans are designed to be worked together so that we can have a really, really strong pedestrian realm in Asheville, which is a fancy way of saying very easy and safe ways to get around while you're walking.
That sounds awesome. So, yeah, I'm so glad you really start to introduce into the topic, because today I want to talk about something really specific, which is the survey about this Close the Gap. It's a chance to comment on proposed project recommendations, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is our 3rd round of public engagement. Unfortunately, it's all been happening during COVID, so it's all been mostly virtual, which has made it very complicated. But these online surveys are very important for us. And if you go to our project page, if you Google City of Asheville Close the Gap, you will get to our project page and the survey link is there. When you open the survey, there is a 10-minute video, which is, I give it, it is a 10-minute long video, and that's hard to do, but it's so important to watch it because it gives you a lot of information and the background story of how we got to where we are now. And then the rest of the survey goes pretty quickly with just a few questions about each one of those 3 plans. And we're trying very hard to get feedback from all neighborhoods of Asheville. So if you live in Asheville or if you work in Asheville, we'd really like to hear from you.
That's great. I think it's really important. That's something that we, the city of Asheville, always encourage to the people to participate, to get informed and to know what we're doing. So absolutely. So this is the 3rd effort that we have done about it, right? So what exactly is this survey asking for? What should people know, or what the people can say about in the survey?
Great question. So right now we have our proposed plans. So if you're looking at the greenway part of the survey, you're looking at the proposed greenways. If they're not already built, they're proposed. Then we also have issues with the ADA portion of the survey, specifically asking what part of town you live in, if we have reached your neighborhood as far as ADA issues in public streets goes. And then the pedestrian plan has proposed sidewalk projects throughout the city. So they go into neighborhoods, but also deal with the main corridors in Asheville. And so the maps show what our proposals are. Our biggest question right now is, did we miss anything or did we get anything wrong? So if you see something in your neighborhood that you have particular questions or concerns about, please provide comment. If you think that everything looks pretty good at this point, please let us know. These plans are called master plans. They're really very high-level plans, more like concepts of where we think that the improvements need to go. They help us drive our capital projects. So we have a 5-year plan for what we're going to build in the city, and these master plans really help us guide what the projects will be in the next 1 to 5 years. So they're they don't provide any immediate projects in your neighborhood. If you see a line in your neighborhood, it's not in the process of being built, but it gives us the justification of moving forward on construction in your neighborhood or in the areas where you work. And if they're not on these plans, it's kind of hard to get them into the queue of construction projects. That's why it's important to get your feedback now.
Makes sense. You were mentioning about this 5-year plan from the city of Asheville. In what year are we of the current plan? Are we starting the new one? And of course, in that context, what input about this specific survey is going to be good for?
Yeah, so the capital projects is the fancy word of saying what we're going to build. And so
right.
we always have a 5-year CIP, capital improvement plan, and it's renewed every year. So, but it does have that queue of projects that we intend to work on. Working on a project from scratch or from the master plan level needs a lot of additional work. It needs community input, it needs feasibility studies and engineering and all that kind of stuff to actually get those shovels in the ground. So these plans, and Close the Gap is the first baby step. It can provide a foot in the door to get on that 5-year CIP list, and then every year that CIP list is renewed because, in theory, we're getting some of those projects off the CIP list and putting new ones on.
Okay, well that's fascinating. Something in our last edition of this program, we have here with us Taylor Floyd from the budget department.
Yeah.
He was fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
and he was letting us know how the whole process of planning the budget is, how complex it is, and of course. For capital projects, I'm pretty sure the whole planning will be also a really complicated process, a really long one. So at this stage, what are we doing now for planning? What we plan now will be tentatively executed when?
Right. So the GAP plans is a 15-year plan. We're really charting a course on all of the possible projects that we can do throughout the city.
Okay.
And them getting onto that CIP list that Taylor works on.
CIP once again?
Capital Improvement Project.
Okay.
And so when Taylor's working on those budgets, he's figuring out the amount of money that's needed to get any of those capital projects, those construction projects, on the list and paid for so that we can get them done.
That's in the end, every department, we all have to work together to make sure everything's rolling around, right?
Right.
I was checking the page and I noticed that one of the goals for the Close the Gap planning process is to identify a citywide network that enables people to walk from home to key destinations. Following on that, what elements have been taken into consideration to this project? And in general for the planning, what are you on the department deciding to what projects and how?
Mm-hmm. We don't have enough time. We'd be here all day, but
we don't be so technical. Yes.
Yeah, we did a lot of analysis. Some of it is destinations where people are needing to get to. Mm-hmm. Some of it was equity. What are the underserved neighborhoods that need extra attention and also extra public engagement to make sure that we are planning something they want. And also need. And then the pedestrian plan is for the sidewalks, and the greenways are for greenways, which we've seen some greenways built in Asheville. They're the big ones down on the river. We have different styles of greenways proposed in these plans. Some of them are much smaller and a more appropriate fit for neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So they don't take up as much space as the Wilma Dykeman Greenway down on the French Broad River, for example. And if you go to the project page, Close the Gap in Asheville, you'll find a lot more information that can help you understand.
Once again, just for you to remember, the page is publicinput.com/gap final survey. There's when you can find the information. Please go watch the video, and then you will be able to answer like each one of the sections: the greenway plan, the ADA plan, the pedestrian plan. Yeah. So well, now that I'm seeing here the page, these three plans, I'm kind of curious. So why we are taking into consideration those three elements into the plan: the greenway, the ADA, and the pedestrian one. Why those?
Well, in part it's because we needed to update the greenway plan and the pedestrian plan that are already out there. They were old and needed to be updated.
Okay.
But also we are very aware that the ADA facilities in Asheville, and what I specifically mean are anything on our streets or greenways that help people who have mobility issues or any other kind of physical disability. So low vision, hearing problems, balance problems, or, heck, people just with baby strollers that need to cross streets, get from a road to a greenway. Our facilities are oftentimes not built correctly or don't exist. So we are trying really hard to train people how to do these crosswalks and ramps correctly, and making sure that they are part of all new construction.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope I answered that question entirely. There's just there's a lot of different directions that we can address these questions.
No, absolutely. It is like when we're talking about the topics that we're passionate, and they ask you, "Oh, what do you think about?" When they come to me and they ask me, "What do you think about this thing of Lord of the Rings?" It's like, wow.
Right.
The beginning of time, So.
It is like the Lord of the Rings, and it's 3 rings. It's the greenways, ADA, and pedestrian. And so the reason why we're doing them all at the same time is because our desired goal at the end of this is to have a really strong knitted network that people of all abilities will be able to get around. You can walk from your neighborhood to your bus stop. You can walk to the desired destinations throughout the city, on your feet, on your wheelchair, on your bike, so that you can get around more safely, and that cars will not present as much of a danger as they do today, because Asheville is the most dangerous city in the state of North Carolina for pedestrian crashes.
Which is certainly something that has been brought up significantly in the news.
Yes.
And it's a fact that should not be underestimated. Despite the fact that we personally might feel secure, that doesn't mean that overall we could improve in that regard, and I understand that that's why we're doing this. You were mentioning too that a few of these plans, the greenway and the pedestrian, had to be updated. Do you remember when was the last time they were designed? Because we're talking about projects from 5 years, 15 years. Well, trends change, situation changes, right? So how often do we have? What was the last version of those, and why we're updating those now?
Yeah, the first Greenway master plan was made in 1999, and it was really part of the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. So since then, the Greenway program has moved to the Transportation Department, and they did another update in 2000. I think it was 14, but it was done really quickly as a knee-jerk response to the I-26 project coming into town. We wanted to make sure that any impacts that interstate project had on the city's Greenway plans would be addressed in that quick update. So it was done in 2014, which is nearly 10 years old, but it was very quick, and it didn't achieve nearly the comprehensive level that we're working on now. And the pedestrian plan, I think, was over 13 years old too.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about like several projects that have been developed, plans that have been developed and updated over time, which is, well, essential, but also it reminds us like we have to be in continued adaptation, and what have been planned it can be readapted, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
And the city's grown considerably in the last 13 years, and people's opinions about the right to be able to walk around safely have changed in the last 10, 15 years. So a lot's changed, and it was time for an update. And our ADA transition is also very important. I think that transition plan was done also in around 1999, so it was in desperate need of an update.
Certainly. And also I'm thinking about like the ADA transition plan that you were mentioning, that will allow people with mobility issues to move around in a more easy way. That's also a trend that we probably were not as aware 20 years ago as we are today. What changes are we seeing, and what does like this ADA transition plan entails for the city? How we envision this then?
It's a difficult plan to do right now because it's not like we can go out and put points in the city that need to be fixed or updated or don't exist and need to exist, because that map would be a big red blob. We had to approach it in a different way, and that was that we needed to make sure that our city staff is trained on how to build and what to look for in new development plans, to make sure that our ADA facilities are correct, that we can train our developers in our area and make sure that they understand through our specs manual. It's like our building guidelines in the city, how to do them correctly without being able to argue against them. And so I am really proud of this ADA plan, because I think it's really addressing the actual needs that we have as far as educating the people who are building, and the developers in town will understand very clearly what we expect from their any kind of sidewalks that they build and their crosswalks, ramps.
And that, I mean, working to people with mobility limitations also improves significantly the walkability for the pedestrians, right?
Absolutely, right. Talk about equity. This is a great example of equity. If you're designing and building for the people most in need, which are people with mobility issues, then everyone benefits. So it's just easier for all of us.
And the whole idea is that thing will reflect into all the projects across the city, right? I'm thinking right now maybe in the new Hawk Creek Road sidewalk improvement that we are planning right now. Right now the project is open, and just to do as a commercial, I want to remind everyone that on March 28th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. we're going to hold like an online meeting, so to have like a public discussion about it. So people interested in the thing, please visit the public input page of the project and register for the page. This is one of many examples of how in the city of Asheville we are working towards to improve the sidewalks and compile with a new vision or a better vision for Asheville, right?
That's right.
Better mobility, and you were absolutely right. This is a great example of how the equity reflects, right? If we help those who have like maybe more mobility issues, we are helping everyone to walk or bike around the city. That's absolutely great. Thinking about the pedestrian plan in particular as well, what are some of the elements that are taken into consideration for pedestrians? You were mentioning security earlier, that I know it's a big issue, but that one, what others we're taking into consideration?
For the pedestrian plan, or all of them?
In the pedestrian plan in particular, for the average people who is walking down the street from one place to another, you know?
Right. Well, I don't think it would take us too long to find out that most neighborhoods are very inadequately built with proper pedestrian facilities, and most subdivisions were built without even sidewalks. So we've got a huge need for proper sidewalks. But what makes people feel really good on sidewalks and greenways too is the feeling of a good separation between where you're walking and cars driving by. And so the faster that cars are driving, like on our bigger roads, say Merriman Avenue or Tunnel Road or Hendersonville Highway, they're driving at speeds usually faster than our posted speed limits. Yeah. And some areas don't have sidewalks at all. Some of them are old-fashioned and too narrow and don't have enough of a buffer between the pedestrian and the cars. And now that we have these big trucks with those big mirrors that hang out the side, they're like 3 feet wider than the truck.
Feel it, yeah.
You can get hit by them more than, and definitely feel it. So we're just trying to make sidewalks that are the right fit for the right road, according to the width of the lanes and the ability to drive fast in the cars.
I think especially today that we had like a bit of a rain, you're walking on the sidewalk and suddenly any car and splash you to the side because there's like you're walking like literally next to the street.
Right.
A little more space, maybe you can manage to walk a little drier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stormwater is another huge issue that has to do with great sidewalks. They need to have stormwater facilities built in, and there's no end to the things that we can do to improve our pedestrian realm in Asheville.
Yeah, well, we have a little less than 10 minutes to finish the program today. Once again, we want to thank you, everyone who is listening, who is really interested in the project. And I would like to take the opportunity here to ask you about like one thing that has come out like on many public engagement that we have had. It is like how the Capital Projects Department or the city, how are we doing like prioritization on the projects or on the areas? Priority means that this should be done first, or it should be require more budget. How are we taking those decisions?
That's a really good question, and it's tough because on our master plan level, we are proposing prioritized projects, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our top 10 listed 1 through 10 are going to be made in that order. There's a lot of different factors, including the expense mostly, but we need to do proper scoping of the projects to see what's feasible, what is actually needed for that type of facility. So the priorities that we have in our plan could be implemented in not necessarily the numerical order. And we are highlighting the projects that we think are the most appropriate to double down on at this point. After the master plan process, it does go through another prioritization procedure to get into that capital improvement plan, the CIP, fancy word for what we're going to build. And so it goes through, multiple layers of prioritizations to get to that point where, okay, this year we're going to build this project. And part of that is, of course, public engagement with the immediate neighborhood where the project will happen. So I want everyone out there that's listening to know that just because there's a line on a map in our proposed greenway or pedestrian plans doesn't necessarily mean that we're coming out and building it anytime soon. This is just, this is our proposed projects that probably should happen, and we have them out there as our vision board, and as the time comes, in combination of various opportunities, different grants out there, or maybe a sidewalk or a road falls apart and we need immediate maintenance, or a neighborhood is really, really wanting to see a project done, and elected officials get on board with that we can say, okay, well, that project is in our master plan here. We see that, and so let's move forward and crank it up a notch to the feasibility study level, and then on to engineering, and then on to budgeting and construction.
Sounds like a whole process. I was checking on me being not a specialist on the planning, on urbanism or anything like that. I was checking that says like destination and equity scores, safety scores, connectivity scores, public input scores. I understand those are the elements to determine the score of priority of every project, right?
That's right. In this planning process, those were the qualifications that we were wanting to meet to get projects on the plans.
Okay.
Right. But it's not too late if you're seeing that there's not a decent connection in your neighborhood, or if you really are opposed to a proposed line in your neighborhood, you can fill out this survey and let us know. And we have time to respond at this point.
Of course. I think we have proof, like the city of Asheville, that we are really open to the input of the citizens. Like 3 weeks ago, alongside with the North Carolina Transportation Department, we held like the open meeting for the Marymount Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we have like open the participation for the new Hawk Creek Road sidewalk that's going to be held next week. Right now we have, of course, the project that we're talking, the GAP final survey. That's publicinput.com/GAP final survey. So you want to visit the page and let us know what you think. But I think that we have so many projects in which people can participate in and voice their thoughts, which is essential. Public input is one of the key elements to determine and to choose. So that's
right.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I know these master plans are very high level, like we talked about, and some people might think, well, why should I give feedback now? But the important thing to know is that getting it on this map is a really important step, and public safety and being able to walk around our streets without getting hit by cars is something that every neighborhood deserves.
Absolutely. And I think that the most important thing to, at least to myself, that I understand, is like we don't need to be like a specialist on the topic. In the end, the people in the neighborhoods and the streets, they who are walking and living there, they know their needs, they know how they feel. So everyone should be entitled to say like, that's what I'm noticing, this is what I'm feeling, and in the end, that's what we're looking when we are open to the input, like hear what people think.
That's right. Yeah, I might be a technical specialist, but I don't know your neighborhood, and so I need your eyes and your opinions to be put down in our survey. Come take our survey. Yes, please.
So, that's all the time we have for today for What's Up Asheville. Thank you so much for listening and, of course, for participating. Once again, I want to thank like Lucy for coming here and talking about this, and for those great final words. It's like, please participate, fill the survey. It's publicinput.com/GAP final survey. Those are the final days. Lucy, I don't know, you want to say something before we hit the road?
Just thank you very much, Ricardo, for the opportunity to come here today, and I really would love for everyone listening to take the survey. It's open till March 21st.
Okay, we still have a few more days to do it. So please keep in touch and stay tuned, and we'll be back to talk about another city project in April, right here on WRIS 100.7 FM. Take care of one another, Asheville. See you soon.